I don't know if I would strictly call this a doctrinal talk, but kind of a reflection or theological reflection on change. I thought might be appropriate as we continue to make this transition to the new Rector's Guide and make some changes in the 3-day Curcio. So with change, we're probably one of two people, either we like it or we hate it. Some people even learn to embrace change, but in reality, if we step back, we realize that change is a part of life. Might even say that God created change. The world we live in is structured, and it changes. So it's change is kind of built into nature. We see the sunrise and the sunset. That was created by God. We see the seasons change. Again, that's how God ordered the world. But if we don't see, if something doesn't change, it often means death, right? If a tree doesn't get new leaves, the sign that it's dead. If it doesn't lose its leaves, of course, for trees that are supposed to. So plants, we see that readily, but also our own bodies. If someone doesn't get up in the morning, right, it's death. If the sun weren't to rise, okay, now that would be a big problem in a lot of ways, but so change is a part of life and a part of how God created the world. Just next door to me, as I sit here in my rectory, I have a house that hasn't changed in a really long time. It has sat vacant, and it is falling apart. And that's just, kind of the natural thing, that when things don't change, when things don't get repaired, they're going to start to deteriorate. So thankfully, the church has now bought it, and it's going to change big time because we're going to tear it down. But change happens whether we like it or not. Change is a part of life. Change is again how God ordered the world. I think in the life of Jesus, there was much change in his life, but one of the biggest changes would have been when he died and rose from the dead. It changed from physical body to a glorified body. So there was change that was both physical and spiritual. And that change is, again, a reflection of life. We will, please God, make that change someday, not necessarily rising from the dead to the resurrection of the body, not the same way Jesus did, but we will rise to eternal life, and we'll have our own glorified body one day. So that's indicative of what is to come for us. But even now, in our earthly bodies, in our spiritual lives, we're either growing or we're not. And again, if we're not growing, if we're not changing, our spiritual life is dead. So change is very important in our spiritual life as well. And hopefully, as we are in the middle of Lent, that we are spending some time taking some attention, focus in our spiritual life this Lenten season, to make change in our lives, in our spiritual life, to grow closer to Christ. That is kind of the point of this Lenten season, to remove things that keep us away from from God and to add things that draw us closer to him through penance, prayer, and acts of charity. So again, if we're not changing, if our spiritual life isn't changing, isn't growing, then our spiritual life is dead. So we need to continue to focus on our own faith journey and where it is headed. Jesus warned us about the lukewarm, right? He doesn't want us to be stale. He wants us to be full of him, and that fire that he sets in our hearts. So change is a part of our physical life, as God created a part of our spiritual life. And so, but yes, we can still be hesitant to change in how we live our life or how we live out our faith, or we're hesitant to change in things that we're involved in, such as Curcio, such as the 3-day weekend, 3-day journey, encounter with Christ. But this change is like the world around us changes, our own life changes. We shouldn't fear the change. Change is, as I've kind of said, is kind of part of life. It's inevitable, but change for the sake of change isn't good, isn't healthy, but change that is intentional is. And that is what we are proceeding with in the Curcio, the changes to get back to our founder, Edward Boudin's original intention for Curcio. So this change that we've embarked upon as part of Curcio is intentional, is purposeful, is a healthy, good change. So reminding ourselves, even though it might be some fear, some hesitancy, some questioning why, but this change, along with other change in life, is, I would venture to say, it's a part of God's plan. That Edward Boudin started Curcio and had his method, and we've gotten to understand that more deeply in the last few years. So we've realized the importance of making the changes that have happened, are happening, and I believe that to be a part of God's plan as well, just as it in our own spiritual journey, the change for the good. We don't want to be lukewarm. We don't want to be stagnant. We want to continue to grow, and this change is a healthy change, moving in the right direction for the Curcio movement. Let us strive to be open to the change that has been initiated, and trusting that God has his hand